special episode of the Definitely HER podcast. As you can see, I'm on my own. This is the first time I've ever done a solo podcast. My name's Kerry Tidman, and I'm your host. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, I want to talk to you about something that's really close to my heart, and it's quite a difficult subject, and it's about disability discrimination, the mental health impacts, and how you can find your voice to speak up for yourself, to advocate for your needs, for reasonable adjustments, and some tips if you're a manager and you are managing somebody with hearing loss or with a disability. So first, I want to say I'm currently going through something really tough, experiencing disability discrimination. And while I can't touch too much on the specifics of that yet, I want to share that it can be very ongoing for those of us who have a disability, having to constantly speak up for even the most basic of needs. And when I talk about the most basic of needs or reasonable adjustments, it can be things like asking for things to be captioned if you're watching a video, asking for your doctor's surgery to email you instead of call you. It can be, that's obviously for those of us that have hearing loss or deafness, but it can be so much more. It could be like providing a seat if you have something wrong with your back, a correct chair, flexible working. And I think people who, those of us who have a disability, we want to work, we want to be successful, we just need a little bit of help. So this episode, I want to share a little bit of my story, but I also want you to feel empowered that you're worth asking for these things. It's okay to take up space and ask for the basic things that you need to feel included, for things to be accessible for you. You're not too much, okay? You're not a burden, because I once felt like that. And while I can't really discuss exactly what's going on for me right now, I want to talk about when I first started to experience disability discrimination, whether it's indirect or direct, it takes such a toll on you. I remember working for this organisation many, many years ago, and I'd worked so hard to get this role, and I remember the interview. And even if you look at application forms, when you have a disability, you're torn between, do I disclose it or do I keep it to myself? Do I not disclose it? It's a real difficult decision, because lots of people, and I've spoken to lots of people who are deaf and hard of hearing, they don't like to disclose it on their application form. Now, some application forms are so reassuring, they're so inclusive. And you've probably seen, like, some employers, they are disability confident employers, and they will encourage you to disclose things, and say they will go out of their way to put reasonable adjustments in place for you at the interview. And they welcome applications from those of us that are in underrepresented communities. So I think that is a massive plus. It's a massive green flag when you see that. But the company I worked for did also have that. And I remember the interview, they were quite welcoming. I was aware that this department I was interviewing for did have a high staff turnover. That's another red flag. And it was a long time ago. I was a lot younger. I wasn't confident as I am now to speak up about how I was feeling. I hadn't yet fully kind of like embraced my disability. I was still hiding my hearing aids. I wasn't really talking about it. And I remember in the interview, I come out of there feeling quite supported. But then when I started to work the job and I got the job, I realised that there was a lot of things that they didn't put in the job description or they hadn't worded correctly. I found out, like, for example, we were expected to travel to different clinics um, to carry out medical procedures. And I presumed, because driving's a big thing for me, and those of us that have hearing loss, I can't hear the sat nav. And I'm quite comfortable driving in areas that I know. But if it's somewhere where I don't really know, I either take somebody with me or I have to really, really research the route, maybe practice it a few times. It's a lot. So they was expecting me to drive up to 10 to 15 miles in city centres, and that had not been disclosed. And when I went back on the job description, they were very crafty and careful about how they worded it. Anyway, I raised it and I said, this is how I feel. Straight away, I was met with no kindness, no empathy. It was, and automatically your guard is up. You realise that these people that are line managing you don't have adequate training. They probably had no managerial training, yet they're managing a massive team. They've got no people skills, they've got no communication skills, they've got no empathy, and they have no idea about disability or the Equality Act. So straight away, you have this anxiety I can't even describe. The anxiety that you get when you have a disability and you have to speak up about things, I can't even describe it. It's like palpitations, not like a panic attack, but your hands go sweaty and you stiffen up. It's such a horrible feeling. And I used to call it my deaf anxiety or my hearing anxiety. And what followed then was a pattern. I tried to complain about what was going on. I was met very hostile. It was, clear that they didn't want to accommodate and that they were going to go out of their way to kind of nitpick at me. And, like I started to question whether I was adequate, and to do this role, if I was capable of doing the role. When I look back now and think, wow, you were more than capable. They just wasn't making things accessible for you. I remember one day I was required to go and do to go to a clinic and work there all day, and the air conditioning unit had broken. They were using a temporary one, and it was so noisy. I had patients coming in my cubicle. I just couldn't hear. I remember speaking up to my supervisor, and she was just like, "Well, I don't know what to do." So you're standing there going, "Look, this is really difficult for me, Rana." And someone's standing there going, "Well, I don't know what to do. I don't know. You just got to make the best of it." Oh, it's awful. There was so many incidents like that. And I remember when I contacted Access to Work, they came out and did an assessment, which was quite difficult because I was working at different locations, and they encouraged me, you know, to speak up a little bit more, and I can't remember, it was asked for some sort of flexible working. Well, this was a long time ago. You're looking at maybe like 2017. Actually, probably 2004. I can't remember. It was quite a long time ago. And policies were quite different then. And there was not a huge lot of awareness about this kind of thing. And I remember speaking up, even asking about if I could just stay local to this certain area, and I'd still be happy to go over to different clinics. And I told them about what happened. And all I got was, well, we've got all this access to work done for you. What more do you want? I think you're being difficult. And I tell you, if that was said to me now, it would be a whole different response. I didn't actually realise at the time how serious that was, how that was really, it was, it made me feel terrible. It was disrespectful. It was unkind. It was cruel. I was, embarrassed. They would often shame me in front of other people. And the toll this took on me and my mental health, my hair started to fall out all at the sides. I wasn't sleeping. I was so stressed. I remember losing weight, and I remember trying to take this further, but there was just nobody that really wanted to help. There was so many miscommunications, emails ignored, and I really wish that I would have stayed and fought it, sorry, but I just don't think I was strong enough. And that's something to really, really be aware of. You have got to be in the right frame of mind and strong to stand up for yourself and battle things like this. Sometimes that's the right thing to do, to fight for what you want, to fight for your needs, to fight for your rights, especially under the Equality Act. There's laws there to protect us for a reason. But what's the impact on your mental health? Your mental health must come first. You must, at that time, I was not strong enough to fight that battle. I just couldn't do it. And I remember my doctor wanted to put me on antidepressants, and I was absolutely like, no, because I'm reacting to my environment. I have a wonderful life. I'm happy at home. I have a happy marriage. I'm reacting to this stress in the workplace. I'm reacting to how I'm being treated. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm reacting to my environment. And I left, and it was such a shame because that could have been such a wonderful career for me. I could have flourished if I was supported by those managers. Now, what could those managers have done differently? Those managers could have approached the situation with kindness and empathy. You may not always have the answers or know what to do, but just sitting with somebody you're managing and saying, hey, I'm here for you. I'm here to listen. Let's get through this together. That can make such a difference to somebody like me who is struggling in the workplace. And I think often leading, if you're a leader or you're a manager or you're responsible for employees, leading with heart, leading with empathy is one of the most important things, because those of us were more likely to speak up about things then. If we feel that we have that trust and respect and that somebody has time for us, we're more likely to speak about how we feel. And when you feel, now I'm a therapist now, I know how important it is to feel listened to feel heard. And so that's a little bit about that story. Now, as a therapist now, I know that I'm not the only one that experiences this. Lots of people do. And it can be so hard to speak up for yourself. So one thing I was going to talk about is there's so many people off work who have experienced things like this, and it's taken such a toll on their mental health. And when you look at workplaces, there's so many of them that don't have equality, diversity, and inclusion policies. Management and leaders have had no disability awareness training. And I think that you have to kind of start at the top. There's got to be policies, there's got to be guidance. And I think that from personal experience, there's so many companies out there that I've done business with or I network with that really are inclusive and go out of their way to support their employees. And it can make such a difference, because if you're happy and thriving at work, you're going to be more productive. You're going to be more empowered. You're going to want to, that's the whole point. If a business is employing you, you're making that business money. Or, workplaces, whether it's a school, whether it's the NHS, whether it's a bank, it's a business and they're there to make money. If you invest in your employees by making them feel secure, empowered, listened to, you have correct policies and procedures in place, you bring a sense of belonging. Now, for some companies, they think that's really hard, but actually, it's not that hard. And the most important thing is actually listening to your employees who have a disability. And sitting and listening to them, because there's so many little things you can implement. And there's one that I really want to talk about is a disability passport, or they're sometimes known as a reasonable adjustments passport. Now, lots of workplaces don't have these and they don't know what they are. And they are vital. Every workplace should have one, either HR, they should be in the HR policies, or they should be in the workplace policies. And what they are, it's a passport between you, the employee, and your line manager. And that passport's there, and on it, it's got things like, what reasonable adjustments you need. It could be something as like captions. You need the content, training content, pre-screen, it needs captions, or it could be you need flexible working, or you need a flashing fire alarm in your office because you're deaf, or it can be absolutely anything, not just for deafness, people who are neurodiverse, ADHD, autism, dyslexia, anything like that. It could be especially software, somebody who has a physical disability. It could be a specialist chair, it could be a ramp, but this is something, this document's there for clear communication between the two of you. On there, it will have a checklist as well for: have occupational health been notified? Has an assessment been done? Have access to work been contacted? And also on there, it will have: what does your disability look like on a good day? What does it look like on a bad day? Because for me, I know if I have my hearing devices on, I will hear certain things. But recently, I've had a real nasty 2 ear infections. I haven't been able to wear my devices. So that's what my disability looks like on a bad day. It changes. And for some people with certain conditions, autoimmune conditions, no 2 days are the same. So this disability passport or reasonable adjustments passport has everything. And it's really important for something like this as well, because lots of people who work in a company, they may go into different roles, and it protects the employee as well. So they don't have to keep constantly repeating to different staff members, to different leaders, to different managers about their disability. This document, you know, it's so important that you feel supported. It's regularly reviewed. Now, I've created my own because lots of places, like I said earlier, don't have them. Government have them. If you look at the government, sometimes the NHS, certain unions, they will have their own equality, diversity and inclusion toolkit, and sometimes a disability passport will be part of that toolkit. But again, not everyone has them. So I've created my own. You can go on my website and I will share the link below, and you can download it for free. If you need any assistance filling it in, there's details in there where you can drop me an email. And I think, so it's there to support the employee. Also, it's there to support the business, the person who's line managing you. So they have that clear communication between the two of you. And so your line manager also knows what you need, because they're not experts in this. They also need that support. Sometimes you will have a line manager who've never ever supported anybody with a disability, and they've not had that guidance or training. So they also need support. That's really important. If you're a manager, you're not on your own. You have the right to request support so you can support the people that you're line managing. And so this document, have a Google, disability passport, reasonable adjustments passport. There's lots of different ones out there, but they are fantastic. And like I said, they should be reviewed about every 3 months, updated if something changes. Access to work, there is quite a wait list at the moment. And I think workplaces often don't understand exactly what they do. Now, one thing I will say is when access to work do come in, they will say, what are the workplace already doing for you? Access to work, they can sometimes recommend reasonable adjustments, same way a occupational health may recommend, but ideally a workplace should be putting those in place straight away, having a conversation with the employer, employee, is there any reasonable adjustments you require? That should be done straight away from interview. That should be done straight away. And I think that there's so many things here in play. Workplaces that are not inclusive, they don't have this kind of inclusive talk in their job applications. So when an employee comes in, it's not done. And the employee then gets scared to speak up, or they're, like I shared earlier, they'll get that approach, that hostile approach, microaggression. Oh, so that they don't want to speak up, and it then escalates. They will end up going off sick, or they'll end up leaving. And there's always a reason. So I think, so in this early intervention is the key. So I'm going to share some tips about how to advocate for yourself. And I think if you're in a workplace, it's important to be in a union if that's available to you. If you're communicating with your line managers or leaders, keep it on emails. So document everything on an email. And I think that way there's a trail. Also, if you're going to go into a meeting to talk about reasonable adjustments, write things down beforehand so you don't forget anything. Ask if you can have a supportive colleague with you or somebody from your union. Some workplaces allow you to take a family member in. And if you do have a certain kind of disability, you're allowed to have somebody with you anyway to support you, to advocate for you. And I think the most important thing is understanding and believing that you're worth it and that you deserve it, because sometimes other people's treatment of you will leave you feeling like you don't matter and that you can't do this and that you're a burden and you're not capable, when that's not true. That's things that your mind will tell you due to being poorly treated by others and due to being discriminated against. You are worth it. You are so talented and you deserve to flourish. You may just need a little bit of help. I need help. I need to have captions. I need to have lots of reasonable adjustments to help me flourish, not just in the workplace, but even at home. I have flashing doorbell. I have a vibrating alarm, which wakes me up. My family have to help me with telephone calls. Many, many years ago, this was embarrassing, but I've learned to fully own it. It's part of who I am. And I help them with things in other ways. I think what employees don't realise is that even those of us with hearing loss, we are multi-talented. I can lip read from quite far. Not everybody, but I'm quite a good lip reader. And I'm, I'm very visual. And I can literally, without my devices on, I can hyper focus, no sound, no distraction, just get into my work. And the list is endless. I have multiple talents that have made me very successful in things that I do. So do you. Don't let your disability define you. You are worth it. You have multiple talents. And let's focus on everything you can do, not what you can't do, because life, the world will constantly show you what you cannot do. We see things on social media showing you how you should be showing up as deaf or how you should be showing up as disabled. Well, nobody knows what it's like except you. You define your disability. You define what it's like to show up as you every day. Don't let society, that workplace, condition you. So that's a few tips to how to advocate for yourself. I think that When you're speaking up about how you feel, you know, it's normal to be nervous, to, you know, second guess, oh, maybe I'm being too much, or maybe, no, you're not. All right. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to flourish in the workplace. So I thought sharing this with you today, I'm hoping it will empower you to either speak up about what you're going through. You're not on your own. Okay. Speak up to somebody you're close to, a union. You can get free legal advice. Or leave that toxic workplace. It can be scary. Change is scary. It's got to be financially, you know. I'm not saying quit your job, but we don't grow where we're not valued. And sometimes workplaces don't want to change. They are so set in their ways of doing this and brushing things under the carpet. Oh, yeah, EDI, tick box exercise. You're not going to grow there. So know your worth. If you don't want to stay and fight and, you know, help to change things and advocate for yourself, if it's taken a toll on you, there is another job out there that will help you to flourish. They will value you and they will see what you bring. They will see everything you can do instead of the things that you can't. And they won't hesitate to put reasonable adjustments in place for you so you can flourish. So I hope that you've enjoyed this session today. I'm really passionate about equity, diversity, and inclusion. And I think that it's so much more than disability. The more we feel valued and supported and feel like we belong somewhere, the more we're going to flourish, the more we'll help others flourish. EDI is not a tick box exercise, okay? And it's something that's constantly evolving. You know, the gender pay gap, menopause, women coming back to work after maternity. There is so much more. And I think that lots need to change, but it starts with speaking up. It starts with me talking about this today, being vulnerable and putting this out there. So thank you so much for listening. And like I said, that disability passport, it's on my website. You can download it for free. If you need any help or you want to reach out or you want to talk about anything or you want to come on the podcast as a guest, please don't hesitate to reach out. I would love to hear your experiences and you take care. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Bye.